The sun was setting over the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across the sandy beach. Jack Miller and his wife, Sarah Adams, walked hand in hand, enjoying the serene beauty of the cool September evening. The couple had rented a charming cottage for a weekend getaway, a prelude to their upcoming 10th wedding anniversary celebration. Sarah was especially excited. She had overheard that Jack had secretly planned a surprise Caribbean cruise for the following week. The thought of romantic horseback rides on the beach during their stops filled her with anticipation. Jack, a successful entrepreneur, had met his best friend and business partner Mike Thompson during their sophomore year at Duke University. The two had become close friends and fraternity brothers, and after graduation, they started a tech company that helped high school juniors with their college search. Over the years, their business flourished, providing them both with a comfortable lifestyle. Sarah and Jack's love story began in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Jack and Mike had set up their business. Sarah worked at a horse farm north of Charlotte, where Jack first saw her during a team outing. Instantly captivated by her beauty and warmth, he nervously asked for her number and, after a few days, gathered the courage to text her. Their connection was immediate and strong, leading to their marriage 11 months later and a honeymoon on horseback in the picturesque Maroon Bells near Aspen. Despite the ups and downs that came with any marriage, Jack and Sarah had always managed to find their way back to each other. Jack's thoughtful surprises and Sarah's nurturing spirit created a bond that seemed unbreakable. However, beneath the surface of their perfect life, cracks were beginning to form. Mike Thompson, standing at 6'2" with dark hair and piercing blue eyes, was the polar opposite of Jack. He was charming, handsome, and a notorious womanizer. His carefree attitude towards relationships often put him at odds with Sarah, who had tried setting him up with a few of her friends, only to see them left heartbroken. Mike enjoyed the thrill of the chase and quickly lost interest once he had won a woman's affection. Despite this, he and Jack shared an unbreakable bond, having built their company from the ground up together. On this particular evening, as Jack and Sarah returned to their cottage after their beach walk, Sarah couldn't shake off a nagging feeling. She had always sensed that Mike harbored a certain attraction towards her, but she had brushed it off as harmless flirtation. Little did she know, Mike's feelings were far from innocent. "Sarah, you've been awfully quiet," Jack said, squeezing her hand gently. "Is everything all right?" Sarah smiled, trying to mask her unease. "I'm just thinking about next week. I can wait to see what you've planned for our anniversary." Jack chuckled, his blue eyes twinkling with mischief. "Well, I can give away all my secrets now, can I?" As they entered the cottage, the aroma of strawberries and cream filled the air. Sarah had prepared a special dessert for them to enjoy in bed. They settled in, savoring the sweetness of the strawberries and the comfort of each other's company. However, as the night wore on, Sarah's thoughts kept drifting back to Mike. Meanwhile, Mike was in his penthouse apartment, sipping on a glass of bourbon and thinking about Sarah. Over the years, he had mastered the art of seduction, and Sarah was the ultimate prize. He knew she was off limits, but that only made the challenge more enticing. He had seen the way she looked at him when Jack wasn't around, and he was determined to make her his, even if it was just for a fleeting moment. The next morning, Jack left early for a business meeting, leaving Sarah alone at the cottage. As she was tidying up, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Mike. "Hey, Sarah, I am in town for a few days. How about we catch up over coffee?" Sarah hesitated. She knew meeting Mike alone was a bad idea, but curiosity got the better of her. She quickly texted back, agreeing to meet him at a nearby coffee shop. When Sarah arrived, Mike was already seated at a corner table, a charming smile on his face. He stood up to greet her, his eyes lingering a little too long on her figure. "Sarah, you look stunning as always," Mike said, pulling out a chair for her. "Thanks, Mike." "It's good to see you," Sarah replied, trying to keep her tone casual. They spent the next hour talking about old times and catching up on each other's lives. Mike skillfully steered the conversation towards more personal topics, making Sarah laugh and feel at ease. As the conversation flowed, Sarah found herself opening up to Mike in ways she hadn't with Jack in a long time. You know, Sarah, Mike said, leaning in closer, I've always admired your strength and beauty. Jack is a lucky man. Sarah blushed, feeling a mix of flattery and discomfort. Thank you, Mike. That means a lot. As they left the coffee shop, Mike walked Sarah to her car. He stopped her before she got in, holding her gaze with his intense blue eyes. Sarah, I know this might sound crazy, but I've always felt a connection with you. I can't stop thinking about you. Sarah's heart raced. She knew she should get in the car and drive away, but instead she stood frozen, caught in the magnetic pull of Mike's gaze. Mike, we can do this. Jack is your best friend and I love him, she said, her voice trembling. I know, but sometimes the heart wants what it wants, Mike replied, his voice low and seductive. Before Sarah could react, Mike leaned in and kissed her. It was a kiss filled with longing and desire, a kiss that ignited a fire within her that she had tried to suppress for so long. For a moment she kissed him back, lost in the passion of the moment. Realizing what she was doing, Sarah pulled away, her breath ragged. Mike, we can tea. This is wrong. Mike stepped back, his expression a mix of frustration and determination. I am sorry, Sarah. I just couldn't help myself. But if you ever change your mind, you know where to find me. Sarah got into her car and drove away, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She knew she had crossed a line, but a part of her couldn't deny the thrill she felt. As she drove back to the cottage, she resolved to put the incident behind her and focus on her marriage with Jack. However, Mike wasn't one to give up easily. He had planted a seed of doubt and desire in Sarah's mind, and he knew it was only a matter of time before it would grow. Back at the cottage, Jack returned from his meeting, bringing with him a bouquet of Sarah's favorite flowers. He kissed her on the forehead, oblivious to the turmoil within her. How was your day, sweetheart? Jack asked, his eyes filled with love and warmth. It was good, Jack. Just missed you, Sarah replied, forcing a smile. As they sat down for dinner, Sarah couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. She loved Jack, but the kiss with Mike had awakened something within her that she couldn't ignore. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would test the strength of their marriage and unravel the secrets they both held. Sarah couldn't shake off the kiss. Mike's words echoed in her mind, challenging her sense of loyalty and propriety. As she went about her daily routines, she found herself thinking more and more about him. She felt guilty, but the thrill of their secret encounter was intoxicating. A few days later, Sarah was at the local horse farm, where she often volunteered. It was a place of solace for her, a refuge where she could clear her mind and find peace. But even the calming presence of the horses couldn't quiet her thoughts. She was brushing down a mare named Bella when her phone buzzed. It was a text from Mike. Thinking about you. Can we meet? Just to talk. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She knew she should ignore it, but her fingers betrayed her, typing a quick response. Okay. Where? Mike replied almost instantly, suggesting a small park nearby. Sarah agreed and finished her tasks at the farm as quickly as she could, her mind racing with anticipation and dread. When she arrived at the park, Mike was already there, leaning against a tree with that familiar, charming smile. He waved her over and she approached, her heart pounding. Thanks for coming, Sarah, Mike said, his voice soft and sincere. Mike, we need to talk about what happened, Sarah began, but Mike cut her off gently. I know, Sarah. I am sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I just couldn't keep my feelings bottled up any longer. Sarah looked down, unsure of what to say. Mike stepped closer, his expression earnest. Sarah, I have known you for years. I have seen you at your best and your worst, and I can't help but feel drawn to you. I know it's wrong, but I can't deny my feelings. Mike, I'm married to Jack. He's your best friend. We can do this, Sarah said, her voice trembling. I know, and I don't want to hurt Jack, but I can help how I feel. I just want to be with you, even if it's just for a little while. Sarah was torn. She knew she loved Jack, but Mike's words and presence were overwhelming. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Mike, we can have an affair. It would destroy everything. Who said anything about an affair? Mike replied, his eyes locking onto hers. All I am asking for is a chance to show you how I feel. No pressure, no expectations. Just let me be there for you. Sarah hesitated. The rational part of her mind screamed to walk away, but the emotional part longed for the excitement and passion that Mike promised. Okay, Mike, we can talk, but that's it. Nothing more, she finally said, her voice firm but wavering. That's all I am asking for, Mike said with a smile, stepping back to give her space. They walked through the park, talking about their lives, their dreams, and their fears. Mike was attentive, listening intently to every word she said. He made her feel special, understood, and wanted. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. As the sun began to set, Sarah realized she had to go. She had been gone longer than she intended, and Jack would be home soon. I have to go, Mike, she said reluctantly. Of course. Thank you for spending time with me, Sarah, Mike replied, his tone respectful. As Sarah drove home, she couldn't help but feel a mix of guilt and exhilaration. She knew she was treading dangerous waters, but part of her didn't want to stop. Meanwhile, Mike watched her drive away, a determined look in his eyes. He knew he had to be patient, to play the long game. Sarah was worth the wait. That night, as Sarah lay in bed next to Jack, she felt a pang of guilt. She turned to him, snuggling close, seeking comfort in his warmth. I love you, Jack, she whispered. Jack kissed her forehead, pulling her closer. I love you too, Sarah. But as Sarah closed her eyes, images of Mike filled her mind, and she knew she was in deeper than she had ever intended. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Sarah. She tried to focus on her work at the horse farm and her responsibilities at home, but Mike's presence lingered in her thoughts. She found herself checking her phone constantly, hoping for a message from him, and feeling a rush of excitement whenever one appeared. Morning, beautiful. Hope you have a great day. Thinking about our walk in the park. Can't wait to see you again. Each message was like a spark, igniting her emotions and drawing her further into the web of desire that Mike was weaving. She knew it was wrong, but she couldn't help herself. One afternoon, as she was preparing dinner, Jack came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Smells delicious, sweetheart. Sarah smiled, trying to push away her guilty thoughts. Thanks, Jack. It's your favorite. Jack kissed her neck, making her giggle. I am so lucky to have you, Sarah. Sarah's heart ached at his words. She knew she didn't deserve his love, but she couldn't bring herself to end her connection with Mike. She felt trapped between her loyalty to Jack and her desire for Mike. Later that evening, as they sat down to eat, Jack brought up their upcoming anniversary. So, any guesses on what I've got planned for our big day? Sarah feigned ignorance, though she knew about the cruise. I have no idea, Jack, but I'm sure it's something amazing. Jack's eyes sparkled with excitement. Well, I can give away too much, but let's just say you should pack your swimsuits and sunscreen. Sarah laughed, playing along. You always know how to spoil me, Jack. As they finished dinner and cleaned up, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from Mike. She quickly glanced at it, her heart racing. Can we meet tomorrow? I need to see you. Sarah's mind raced. She knew she should say no, but the pull was too strong. She quickly typed back, okay. Where? The next day, Sarah found herself driving to a secluded spot by the lake. Mike had chosen a place where they wouldn't be seen, away from prying eyes. When she arrived, Mike was already there, waiting with a picnic basket and a blanket. Hey, Sarah, he greeted her, his smile warm and inviting. Hi, Mike, Sarah replied, trying to keep her composure. They spread out the blanket and sat down, enjoying the peaceful surroundings. Mike had brought her favorite snacks and a bottle of wine, making her feel special and cared for. As they talked, Mike's charm and attentiveness made Sarah feel like the only woman in the world. She knew she was playing with fire, but she couldn't resist the allure. Sarah, I know this is complicated, but I can help how I feel about you, Mike said, his eyes locking onto hers. I don't want to come between you and Jack, but I can deny my feelings, Mike. This is so hard. I love Jack, but I can't stop thinking about you, Sarah admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. Mike reached out, gently wiping away her tears. I understand, Sarah. We don't have to figure everything out right now. Let's just take it one step at a time. Sarah nodded, grateful for his understanding. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their emotions hanging in the air. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the lake, Mike leaned in and kissed Sarah. This time, she didn't pull away. She let herself get lost in the moment, surrendering to the passion that had been building between them. They spent the rest of the evening together, talking, laughing, and sharing their deepest fears and desires. Sarah knew she was crossing a line, but she couldn't bring herself to care. Being with Mike made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. When it was time to leave, Mike walked her to her car, holding her close. "Thank you for today, Sarah. It meant a lot to me." "Me too, Mike," Sarah replied, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. As she drove home, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. She knew she was playing a dangerous game, but the thrill of it was too intoxicating to resist. Back at the cottage, Jack was waiting for her with a warm smile. "Hey, sweetheart, how was your day?" "It was good, Jack. Just did some errands and went for a walk," Sarah lied, her stomach twisting with guilt. "Glad to hear it." "I missed you," Jack said, pulling her into a hug. "I missed you too," Sarah whispered, trying to push away the guilt that threatened to overwhelm her. As they settled in for the night, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her world was about to change in ways she couldn't control. She was caught between two men, two lives, and two paths, and she knew that sooner or later she would have to choose. The days following their lakeside picnic were a blur for Sarah. She found herself constantly checking her phone, eagerly awaiting messages from Mike. Each text, each call, each stolen moment they shared drew her deeper into the web of their affair. Despite her attempts to maintain a sense of normalcy at home, the thrill of her secret relationship with Mike consumed her thoughts. One Friday afternoon, as Sarah was finishing her tasks at the horse farm, her phone buzzed with a message from Mike. "Meet me at the cabin tonight. I need to see you." Her heart raced as she read the message. The cabin Mike referred to was a secluded rental he had used for weekend getaways. She knew it was risky, but the pull was irresistible. She quickly texted back, agreeing to meet him after dinner. That evening, Sarah cooked dinner for Jack, trying to act as if everything was normal. As they ate, Jack talked about their upcoming anniversary cruise, his excitement palpable. "I can't wait to show you the surprise I've planned for us, Sarah. It's going to be unforgettable," Jack said, his eyes shining with love and anticipation. Sarah forced a smile, her mind elsewhere. "I am sure it will be, Jack. You always know how to make things special." After dinner, Sarah excused herself, claiming she needed to run some errands. Jack kissed her goodbye, completely unaware of her true intentions. As Sarah drove to the cabin, a mix of excitement and guilt churned in her stomach. She knew she was walking a dangerous path, but the thought of being with Mike, even for a few hours, was too tempting to resist. When she arrived, Mike was waiting for her on the porch, a bottle of wine and 2 glasses in hand. He smiled as she approached, his eyes filled with desire. "Sarah, you look stunning," Mike said, handing her a glass of wine. "Thanks, Mike." "It's good to see you," Sarah replied, her voice betraying her nervousness. They sat on the porch, sipping wine and talking about their day. As the conversation flowed, Sarah felt herself relaxing, the tension melting away. Mike's charm and attentiveness made her feel special, and she couldn't help but be drawn to him. "Sarah, I've been thinking about you constantly," Mike said, his voice soft and sincere. "I know this is complicated, but I can help how I feel." "Mike, I feel the same way, but this is so wrong." "We are betraying Jack," Sarah replied, her eyes filled with conflict. "I know, and I hate that we are hurting him. But I can't deny my feelings for you, Sarah. I want to be with you, even if it's just for a little while," Mike said, his voice full of emotion. Sarah looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of his feelings. She knew she should walk away, but the pull was too strong. She leaned in, and their lips met in a passionate kiss. The world around them faded away as they gave in to their desire, the intensity of their connection overwhelming them. Inside the cabin, they continued their embrace, their kisses growing more fervent. Mike's hands roamed over Sarah's body, igniting a fire within her that she hadn't felt in years. They made their way to the bedroom, shedding their clothes in a trail behind them. In the heat of the moment, Sarah forgot all her reservations. The thrill of being with Mike, of giving in to her forbidden desires, consumed her. They fell onto the bed, their bodies entwined, losing themselves in the passion of the night. Hours later, as they lay tangled in the sheets, Sarah felt a wave of guilt wash over her. She turned to Mike, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mike, what are we doing? This is going to destroy everything." Mike stroked her hair gently, his voice soothing. "I know, Sarah, but I can help how I feel about you. We all figure this out, I promise." Sarah nodded, though she knew there were no easy answers. She got dressed and slipped out of the cabin, the weight of her actions heavy on her shoulders. As she drove home, the reality of what she had done hit her hard. She was betraying the man she loved, risking everything for a fleeting moment of passion. But despite the guilt, she couldn't deny the exhilaration she felt when she was with Mike. Back at the cottage, Jack was already asleep. Sarah slipped into bed beside him, careful not to wake him. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. She knew she was playing with fire, but she couldn't bring herself to end things with Mike. The allure was too strong, the thrill too intoxicating. The following days were a delicate balancing act for Sarah. She maintained her facade of a loving wife, while secretly meeting Mike whenever she could. They stole moments together in secluded places, their passion growing with each encounter. One afternoon, Sarah and Mike met at a quaint little cafe on the outskirts of town. They sat in a corner booth, hidden from view, their hands intertwined under the table. "Sarah, I've been thinking about us a lot," Mike said, his voice low and serious. "I want more than just stolen moments. I want to be with you, openly and honestly. Mike, we can tea. It would destroy Jack. I can hurt him like that," Sarah replied, her eyes filled with conflict. "I know, and I don't want to hurt him either. But I can't keep living like this, sneaking around and hiding our feelings." "We deserve to be happy, Sarah," Mike said, his grip on her hand tightening. Sarah sighed, feeling the weight of his words. She knew he was right, but the thought of breaking Jack's heart was unbearable. "Let's just take it one day at a time, Mike." "We'll figure this out," Sarah said, trying to reassure him. Mike nodded, though she could see the frustration in his eyes. They finished their coffee in silence, the tension between them palpable. As they left the cafe, Mike pulled Sarah into an alleyway, pressing her against the wall. He kissed her with a fierce intensity, his hands gripping her waist. "I need you, Sarah," he whispered against her lips. "I need you too, Mike," Sarah replied, her voice filled with longing. They spent the rest of the afternoon in a nearby hotel, their passion consuming them once again. But as the sun began to set, reality came crashing back. They parted ways, each feeling the weight of their actions. That evening, as Sarah prepared dinner for Jack, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. She knew their affair couldn't remain a secret forever. Sooner or later, Jack would find out, and the fallout would be devastating. Jack arrived home, greeting her with a kiss. "Hey, sweetheart, how was your day?" "It was good, Jack. Just ran some errands and did some work at the farm," Sarah lied, her stomach twisting with guilt. "I am glad to hear it." "I missed you," Jack said, pulling her into a hug. "I missed you too," Sarah whispered, trying to push away the guilt that gnawed at her. As they sat down to dinner, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of impending doom. She was caught in a web of deceit, and she knew it was only a matter of time before everything unraveled. But for now, she had to maintain her facade, pretending everything was fine while her world slowly crumbled around her. The weekend was upon them, and Jack and Sarah were busy preparing for their anniversary cruise. Jack had meticulously planned every detail, excited to surprise Sarah with the luxurious trip. He could hardly contain his excitement as he packed their suitcases, eagerly anticipating the moment he would reveal his grand gesture. Meanwhile, Sarah's mind was elsewhere. Her thoughts were consumed by Mike and the secret life she was leading. She felt the tension growing within her, knowing she was living a double life. Despite the guilt, she couldn't bring herself to end things with Mike. The passion and thrill of their affair were too powerful to resist. As they packed, Jack received a call from Megan Carter, an acquaintance who worked at the local riding stable. "Hi, Jack. I hope I'm not interrupting. I just wanted to let you know that Sarah S. wallet was found at Seabrook Stables. She might not have realized it S missing yet." Jack was puzzled. "Thanks, Megan. That S strange. She told me she was at a horse show in Lexington. I'll let her know." After hanging up, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why would Sarah S. wallet be at Seabrook if she was supposed to be in Lexington? The thought gnawed at him, and he decided to investigate further. Later that evening, as they finished packing, Jack casually mentioned the call. "Hey, Sarah," Megan from Seabrook called. "They found your wallet. Did you lose it there?" Sarah S. heart skipped a beat. She quickly composed herself, trying to appear nonchalant. "Oh, that S, right. I must have dropped it last time I was there. Thanks for letting me know." Jack nodded, but his suspicions grew. He decided to keep a close eye on Sarah and see if anything else seemed out of place. He couldn't bear the thought of her lying to him, but he needed to know the truth. The next morning, Jack made a call to Lisa Brooks, a private investigator he had used for business matters in the past. "Lisa, I need your help with something personal. I think Sarah might be hiding something from me." Lisa listened carefully as Jack explained the situation. "I will take the case, Jack. I'll start by looking into her activities and see if there is anything unusual." Jack felt a mix of relief and dread. He hoped he was wrong, but he needed to know the truth. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her secret meetings with Mike, unaware of Jack's suspicions. They met at a secluded cabin far from prying eyes. Each encounter was filled with passion and desire, but the guilt was becoming harder to ignore. One evening, as they lay entwined in each other's arms, Mike noticed Sarah's troubled expression. "What is she wrong, Sarah? You seem distracted." Sarah sighed, running her fingers through his hair. "I'm just worried, Mike. I hate lying to Jack. He doesn't deserve this." Mike held her close, his voice soothing. "I know, Sarah, but we can deny our feelings. We'll figure this out, I promise." Sarah nodded, but the nagging feeling of guilt persisted. She knew their affair couldn't remain a secret forever. Sooner or later, Jack would find out, and the consequences would be devastating. Lisa's investigation progressed quickly. She followed Sarah discreetly, documenting her meetings with Mike. She took photos, recorded conversations, and gathered evidence of the affair. It wasn't long before she had enough to confirm Jack's worst fears. One afternoon, as Jack was working in his home office, Lisa called with an update. "Jack, I've got something you need to see. Can we meet?" Jack's heart sank. "Of course, Lisa. I'll be there in an hour." They met at a small cafe where Lisa presented the evidence she had gathered. Photos of Sarah and Mike together, receipts for hotel rooms, and recordings of their conversations. Jack's hands trembled as he looked through the evidence, his worst fears confirmed. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I know this is hard to see," Lisa said, her voice filled with sympathy. Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Thank you, Lisa. I needed to know the truth." As he drove home, Jack's mind raced with emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness, and confusion. He couldn't believe Sarah had been lying to him, that she had been unfaithful. But he also knew he needed to confront her, to get answers. That evening, as they sat down to dinner, Jack decided to confront Sarah. He couldn't keep the charade going any longer. "Sarah, we need to talk." Sarah looked up, her heart pounding. She could see the seriousness in Jack's eyes. "What is it, Jack?" "I know about you and Mike," Jack said, his voice steady but filled with pain. "I hired a private investigator. I've seen the photos, heard the recordings. I know everything." Sarah's face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She felt like the ground had been pulled from under her. "Why, Sarah? Why would you do this to us?" Jack asked, his voice breaking. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "Jack, I am so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I was feeling lost and Mike was there. I know it is not an excuse, but I didn't know how to stop." Jack shook his head, trying to process her words. "How long has this been going on?" "About 6 months," Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack stood up, unable to contain his anger. 6 months? You've been lying to me for 6 months? Do you have any idea what this has done to me? Sarah sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I'm so sorry, Jack. I know I've hurt you. I wish I could take it all back. Jack paced the room, his mind racing. I trusted you, Sarah. I loved you. And you threw it all away for what? For him? It wasn't about him, Jack. It was about me. I felt lost, like I was missing something. I didn't know how to find my way back, Sarah cried. Jack stopped, his eyes filled with pain. And now? What happens now? I don't know, Jack. I want to make things right, but I don't know how, Sarah said, her voice breaking. Jack took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. We're supposed to leave for our anniversary cruise in a few days. I don't even know if I want to go anymore. Sarah looked up, her eyes pleading. Jack, please, let's try to work this out. We've been through so much together. Dawn to throw it all away. Jack sighed, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. I need time to think, Sarah. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I need to figure out what to do next. They spent the rest of the evening in silence, the once warm and loving atmosphere now filled with tension and sorrow. Sarah knew she had shattered Jack's trust, and she didn't know if she could ever repair it. As they lay in bed that night, both of them stared at the ceiling, lost in their thoughts. The anniversary cruise that had once symbolized their love and commitment now felt like a cruel reminder of their broken relationship. The next morning, Jack woke up early and went for a long walk on the beach. The cool sea breeze and the sound of the waves provided a momentary escape from the turmoil in his mind. He knew he had to make a decision, but the path forward was unclear. Back at the cottage, Sarah sat on the porch, waiting for Jack to return. She felt a deep sense of regret and remorse, wishing she could turn back time and undo the damage she had caused. When Jack finally returned, he sat down beside her, the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sarah, I've made a decision. We'll go on the cruise, but I need you to understand that this doesn't mean everything is okay. We have a lot to work through, and I don't know if we'll be able to fix this. But I'm willing to try. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Jack. I promise I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. As they prepared for their trip, the tension between them was palpable. The cruise that was meant to be a celebration of their love now felt like a test of their endurance. They both knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but they were determined to face it together. The cruise ship gleamed under the morning sun as it prepared to set sail. Passengers buzzed with excitement, ready for a week of relaxation and adventure. But for Jack and Sarah, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. As they boarded the ship, Sarah tried to put on a brave face, hoping the trip might help mend their fractured relationship. Jack, on the other hand, felt a mix of anger and sadness. He had agreed to go on the cruise to give their marriage a chance, but the betrayal still burned deeply. As they settled into their luxurious cabin, Jack could barely look at Sarah without feeling a pang of hurt. Their first few days at sea were a delicate dance of avoidance and forced pleasantries. They attended dinners and shows, participated in activities, but the distance between them was palpable. Jack couldn't shake the images of Sarah with Mike, and Sarah was consumed with guilt and regret. On the third night, they attended a formal dinner in the ship's grand ballroom. The ambiance was elegant, with soft music playing and chandeliers casting a warm glow. As they sat at their table, Sarah tried to engage Jack in conversation. Jack, isn't this beautiful? The view of the ocean at sunset is breathtaking, she said, trying to sound cheerful. Jack nodded, his expression distant. Yes, it is. Sarah sighed, feeling the weight of their strained relationship. I know things are difficult right now, Jack, but I want to make things right. I am willing to do whatever it takes. Jack looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and sadness. I appreciate that, Sarah, but it's going to take more than words to fix this. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of their server, who brought out their meals. They ate in silence, the unspoken tension hanging heavy between them. After dinner, they took a walk on the deck, the cool night air providing a brief respite from the suffocating atmosphere. As they leaned against the railing, gazing out at the endless expanse of water, Jack finally spoke. Sarah, I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that happened. I need to know that you are truly committed to making this work, he said, his voice steady but firm. I am, Jack. I promise you I'll do whatever it takes, Sarah replied, her eyes pleading. Jack nodded, taking a deep breath. All right. Then we need to set some ground rules. No more secrets, no more lies. We need to be honest with each other, even when it's hard. Sarah nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I agree, Jack. No more secrets. As they continued their walk, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it, her heart sinking as she saw it was from Mike. Hope you're enjoying your cruise. I miss you. Sarah quickly put the phone away, hoping Jack hadn't noticed. But Jack's sharp eyes didn't miss a thing. Who was that? He asked, his tone wary. Sarah hesitated, knowing she couldn't lie. It was Mike. He sent a message asking how I am doing. Jack's jaw tightened, and he took a step back. I thought we agreed, Sarah, no more secrets. I'm sorry, Jack. I should have told you right away, Sarah said, her voice trembling. Jack took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. I need to know that you've cut off all contact with him. If we're going to have any chance of fixing this, you need to show me that you are committed to us, and only us. I'll block him, Jack. I promise, Sarah said, pulling out her phone and blocking Mike's number. Jack watched her, his expression softening slightly. Thank you, Sarah. It is a start. As they returned to their cabin, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to rebuild their trust and heal their relationship. Meanwhile, back on shore, Mike was feeling frustrated and restless. He couldn't stand the thought of Sarah being away from him, especially on a romantic cruise with Jack. He paced his apartment, replaying their conversations and moments together in his mind. Unable to contain his frustration, Mike decided to take matters into his own hands. He booked a last-minute flight to the next port of call, determined to see Sarah and convince her that they belonged together. The next morning, Jack and Sarah disembarked at the bustling port city of San Juan, Puerto Rico. The vibrant streets and lively atmosphere provided a welcome distraction from their troubles. They spent the day exploring the historic sites, enjoying local cuisine, and trying to reconnect. As they strolled through the colorful streets of Old San Juan, Sarah marveled at the beauty of the city. Jack, isn't this place incredible? The architecture, the history, it's all so fascinating. Jack smiled, appreciating Sarah's enthusiasm. It really is. I'm glad we are here together. For a moment, it felt like old times. They laughed, took photos, and shared a sense of wonder at their surroundings. But the shadow of their problems still lingered. In the evening, they returned to the ship for a special event, a masquerade ball. The grand ballroom was adorned with elegant decorations, and passengers wore elaborate masks, adding an air of mystery and excitement. Sarah wore a beautiful blue gown, and Jack donned a classic black tuxedo. As they entered the ballroom, they were handed masks to wear, blending in with the crowd. The music played, and couples danced gracefully around them. Jack extended his hand to Sarah. May I have this dance? Sarah smiled, taking his hand. Of course. They danced together, the music and the ambiance transporting them to a different world. For a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the room. But as they swayed to the music, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the crowd. Her heart raced as she recognized Mike, his eyes fixed on her from across the room. Panic surged through her, and she tightened her grip on Jack's hand. Jack, I need to go to the restroom. I'll be right back, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. Jack nodded, letting her go. All right, I'll be here. Sarah hurried to the restroom, her mind racing. What was Mike doing here? How did he find them? She needed to get him away before Jack saw him. As she exited the restroom, Mike was waiting for her in the hallway. Sarah, I couldn't stay away. I had to see you. Mike, what are you doing here? You need to leave. Jack will see you, Sarah said, her voice urgent. I don't care, Sarah. I love you. I want to be with you, Mike said, stepping closer. Sarah pushed him back, her voice firm. Mike, this isn't the time or place. You need to go. Mike's expression hardened. I am not leaving without you, Sarah. We belong together. Just then, Jack appeared at the end of the hallway, his eyes narrowing as he saw Mike and Sarah together. What is going on here? Sarah's heart pounded as she turned to Jack. Jack, I can explain. Jack's eyes were filled with anger and betrayal. Explain what, Sarah? That you're still seeing him. No, Jack, it's not what it looks like. He just showed up. I didn't know he was here, Sarah pleaded. Mike stepped forward, his voice defiant. I am here because I love her, Jack, and I'm not giving up on her. Jack's fists clenched, his voice cold. You need to leave, Mike, now. Mike stood his ground, his eyes locked on Jack's. I'm not going anywhere. Sarah stepped between them, her voice desperate. Please, both of you, stop. This isn't helping. Jack took a deep breath, trying to control his anger. Sarah, go back to the cabin. I'll deal with this. Sarah hesitated, but Jack's stern expression left no room for argument. She turned and hurried back to the cabin, her heart heavy with fear and regret. As she closed the door behind her, she collapsed onto the bed, tears streaming down her face. She had hoped this trip would bring them closer, but now it felt like everything was falling apart. Back in the hallway, Jack and Mike stood face to face, the tension between them palpable. You've already done enough damage, Mike. Leave us alone, Jack said, his voice low and dangerous. Mike's eyes burned with determination. I love her, Jack, and I'm not giving up on her. Jack took a step closer, his voice cold. If you care about her at all, you'll leave. You're only making things worse. Mike hesitated, the weight of Jack's words sinking in. He knew he was pushing Sarah further away, but he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. I'll go, Mike finally said, his voice filled with defeat. But this isn't over, Jack. Jack watched as Mike walked away, his heart heavy with anger and sorrow. He returned to the cabin, finding Sarah in tears. Sarah, I need to know the truth. Are you still in love with him? Jack asked, his voice filled with pain. Sarah looked up, her eyes red and swollen. No, Jack, I'm not. I am committed to making this work with you. I promise. Jack sighed, sitting down beside her. We have a lot to work through, Sarah, but I am willing to try if you are. Sarah nodded, her heart filled with hope and determination. I am, Jack. I am. As they held each other, the ship sailed on through the night, carrying them towards an uncertain future. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they were determined to face it together. The cruise continued, but the atmosphere between Jack and Sarah remained tense. Jack's confrontation with Mike had left him feeling more betrayed and uncertain than ever. Sarah, on the other hand, was filled with a mix of fear and determination. She knew she had to prove her commitment to Jack and make things right. One evening, as the ship sailed through calm waters, they decided to attend a couples workshop offered by the cruise staff. The workshop was designed to help couples reconnect and strengthen their relationships, and Jack hoped it might provide some guidance. They entered the brightly lit room, filled with other couples seated in a circle. The facilitator, a cheerful woman named Lisa, welcomed them warmly. Welcome, everyone. Tonight we are going to focus on communication and trust-building exercises. Let us start with a simple activity. Turn to your partner and share one thing you appreciate about them. Jack turned to Sarah, his expression softening. I appreciate your kindness and your ability to make everyone around you feel special. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I appreciate your strength and your unwavering support, even when things are difficult. The exercise continued, with each couple sharing their thoughts and feelings. As the workshop progressed, Jack and Sarah found themselves opening up more, the walls between them slowly starting to crumble. After the workshop, they took a walk on the deck, the cool breeze providing a refreshing contrast to the warmth of their earlier conversation. Jack, I know I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm committed to making things right. I love you, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust, Sarah said, her voice filled with sincerity. Jack nodded, taking her hand in his. I love you too, Sarah. It's going to take time, but I am willing to try. The next day, they docked at their next port of call, St. Thomas. The island's lush landscapes and crystal-clear waters provided a perfect backdrop for their day of exploration. They rented a jeep and drove around the island, visiting secluded beaches and enjoying the local cuisine. As they sat on a quiet beach, watching the waves lap against the shore, Jack turned to Sarah. I want to trust you again, Sarah, but I need to know that you've truly let go of Mike. I have, Jack. I promise. He's out of my life for good, Sarah replied, her voice firm. Jack sighed, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. All right, let's move forward together. Back on the ship, they spent their evenings attending shows and dancing under the stars. The ship's nightly entertainment provided a welcome distraction from their troubles, and they began to find joy in each other's company again. However, Mike's unexpected appearance on the cruise had left a lingering sense of unease. Jack knew he needed to take action to protect their relationship and ensure Mike stayed out of their lives for good. One afternoon, while Sarah was at the spa, Jack made a call to Tom Harris, his lawyer. Tom, I need your help with something personal. It's about Sarah and Mike. Tom listened intently as Jack explained the situation. I understand, Jack. Let us set up a meeting when you return. We'll figure out a plan to handle this. Jack felt a sense of relief, knowing he had someone on his side who could help navigate the complexities of the situation. Later that evening, Jack and Sarah attended a private dinner on the ship's deck. The setting was romantic, with candlelit tables and soft music playing in the background. As they enjoyed their meal, Jack reached across the table, taking Sarah's hand in his. Sarah, I want us to move forward, but we need to be honest with each other. No more secrets, Jack said, his voice gentle but firm. Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. I agree, Jack. No more secrets. As they finished their meal, a ship's officer approached their table. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, I am sorry to disturb you, but there's a matter that requires your attention. Jack and Sarah exchanged worried glances before following the officer to a private office. Inside, they found the ship's captain and security officer waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, we've received a report about an altercation involving you and another passenger, Mr. Mike Thompson. We need to ensure the safety of all our guests, and we take these matters seriously, the captain explained. Jack felt a surge of anger. Mike followed us here. He's been harassing Sarah and I confronted him. He needs to stay away from us. The security officer nodded. We understand your concerns, Mr. Miller. We've already spoken to Mr. Thompson, and he has been confined to his cabin for the remainder of the cruise. He will be disembarked at the next port and banned from future sailings with our company. Jack felt a sense of relief wash over him. Thank you. We just want to enjoy the rest of our trip without any more disturbances. The captain smiled reassuringly. We'll do everything we can to ensure your safety and comfort, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. As they returned to their cabin, Jack and Sarah felt a renewed sense of hope. With Mike out of the picture, they could focus on rebuilding their relationship without the constant threat of his interference. The following days were filled with a sense of renewal. Jack and Sarah spent their time exploring the remaining ports, enjoying excursions and making new memories. They attended a couple's massage, went snorkeling in turquoise waters, and shared quiet moments watching the sunset from their balcony. One evening, as they sat on their balcony, Jack turned to Sarah. I feel like we are finally moving forward. It's not going to be easy, but I believe we can make it. Sarah smiled, her heart filled with hope. I believe that too, Jack. I'm so grateful for this chance to start over. As the cruise came to an end, they returned home with a renewed sense of commitment. They knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but they were determined to face it together. Back in their hometown, Jack and Sarah met with Tom Harris to discuss the legal steps they could take to protect their relationship and ensure Mike stayed away. Tom advised them on obtaining a restraining order and other measures to safeguard their privacy. In the weeks that followed, Jack and Sarah attended couples therapy, working through their issues and rebuilding their trust. The sessions were difficult, filled with raw emotions and painful truths, but they both knew it was necessary for their healing. One afternoon, as they sat in their therapist's office, Jack turned to Sarah. I am proud of us, Sarah. We've come a long way, and I feel like we were stronger because of it. Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm proud of us too, Jack. I love you, and I am committed to making this work. Their therapist smiled, encouraging them to continue their journey of healing and growth. "You're doing great work, both of you. Keep communicating and supporting each other, and you will get through this." As they left the office, Jack and Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment. They had faced their challenges head-on and were emerging stronger on the other side. That evening, they returned to the beach where their journey had begun. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the sand and waves. Jack took Sarah's hand, pulling her close. "Sarah, I know we have been through a lot, but I want you to know that I love you more than ever. We've faced our demons and we were still standing. That is something to be proud of." Sarah smiled, her heart filled with love. "I love you too, Jack. Thank you for giving us this chance. I promise to always be honest and faithful from now on." As they stood on the beach, watching the sunset, they felt a sense of peace and contentment. Their journey had been difficult, but they had found their way back to each other, and in that moment, they knew they could face whatever the future held as long as they were together. As the days turned into weeks, Jack and Sarah settled back into their routine, but the memories of their tumultuous cruise and the shadow of Mike's interference still loomed large. They were committed to rebuilding their trust and ensuring their relationship remained strong, but they knew they had to take concrete steps to protect themselves from future disruptions. One morning, Jack and Sarah met with Tom Harris in his office. Tom greeted them warmly, offering them seats before getting down to business. "Jack, Sarah, I am glad to see you both. I understand you've been through a lot, and I'm here to help you navigate the legal aspects of your situation. Let us talk about what we can do to ensure your safety and peace of mind." Jack nodded, his expression serious. "Thank you, Tom. We want to make sure Mike stays out of our lives for good. What are our options?" Tom leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. "The first step is obtaining a restraining order against Mike. This will legally prevent him from contacting or approaching either of you. Given the evidence of his harassment, we should be able to get the order granted without much difficulty." Sarah looked at Jack, then back at Tom. "We just want to feel safe, Tom. Can you guide us through the process?" "Of course, Sarah. I'll file the necessary paperwork and represent you in court. We'll need to gather all the evidence of his harassment and any threatening behavior. This includes messages, emails, and witness statements from the cruise staff." Over the next few days, Jack and Sarah worked closely with Tom to compile the evidence. They provided screenshots of Mike's messages, detailed accounts of his confrontations, and statements from the ship's captain and security officer. The process was emotionally draining, but they knew it was necessary. One afternoon, as they were organizing the documents, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it, her heart sinking as she saw it was from an unknown number. The message read, "You can keep me away forever, Sarah. I'll always be here." Sarah showed the message to Jack, her hands trembling. "He's still trying to reach me, Jack. I thought we blocked him." Jack's eyes filled with anger. "We need to show this to Tom. This is exactly the kind of harassment we need to stop." They forwarded the message to Tom, who immediately added it to their evidence file. "This will only strengthen our case," Tom assured them. "We'll get the restraining order granted as soon as possible." A few days later, they appeared in court for the hearing. The judge listened carefully as Tom presented their case, detailing the harassment and the need for protection. Jack and Sarah both testified, sharing their experiences and the impact Mike's actions had on their lives. The judge reviewed the evidence and granted the restraining order, prohibiting Mike from contacting or approaching Jack and Sarah. They left the courthouse feeling a sense of relief, knowing they had taken a crucial step in safeguarding their future. Back at home, Jack and Sarah continued their therapy sessions, focusing on rebuilding their trust and communication. They worked through their feelings of betrayal and guilt, finding ways to reconnect and strengthen their bond. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, Jack and Sarah decided to take a walk on the beach. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water. They walked hand in hand, feeling the sand between their toes and the cool breeze on their faces. "Jack, I know it's been a difficult journey, but I feel like we are finally making progress," Sarah said, her voice filled with hope. "I agree, Sarah. We've come a long way and I'm proud of us. We are stronger together." Jack replied, squeezing her hand. As they continued their walk, Jack's phone buzzed with a call. He glanced at the screen and saw it was Tom. "Tom, what's up?" Jack answered. "Jack, I have some news. Mike has been arrested for violating the restraining order. He was found near your home and the police apprehended him." "He is currently in custody," Tom said, his tone serious. Jack felt a surge of relief and anger. "Thank you, Tom. We appreciate everything you've done for us." "Of course, Jack. I'll keep you updated on the legal proceedings. In the meantime, stay vigilant and let me know if you need anything," Tom replied. Jack hung up, turning to Sarah. "Mike's been arrested. He violated the restraining order and was found near our home." Sarah's eyes widened with a mix of fear and relief. "I can believe he's still trying to come after us. What's wrong with him?" "He is obsessed, Sarah. But we're not going to let him control our lives. We've taken the right steps, and we're going to keep moving forward," Jack said, his voice determined. In the weeks that followed, Jack and Sarah focused on their healing and rebuilding their lives. They continued therapy, finding new ways to connect and communicate. They also took steps to enhance their security, installing cameras around their property, and working with Tom to ensure their legal protection remained strong. One morning, as they sat on their porch enjoying a cup of coffee, Sarah looked at Jack, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Jack, I can thank you enough for standing by me through all of this. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm committed to making things right." Jack smiled, reaching for her hand. "We've both made mistakes, Sarah, but we are stronger because of it. I love you, and I'm not giving up on us." Their journey had been filled with challenges, but they had emerged stronger and more united. As they looked out at the horizon, they knew they could face whatever the future held, as long as they were together. The legal proceedings against Mike moved swiftly. With Tom Harris's meticulous preparation and the overwhelming evidence of Mike's harassment, the case against him was strong. Jack and Sarah hoped that this would finally put an end to the disruptions in their lives. One afternoon, Tom called Jack and Sarah to his office for an update. They sat in the conference room, anticipation and anxiety etched on their faces. "Jack, Sarah, I have good news. The restraining order violation case against Mike is proceeding well. Given the evidence, it is likely he will face serious consequences. He is looking at potential jail time," Tom said, his tone confident. Jack sighed with relief. "Thank you, Tom. This means a lot to us. We just want to move on with our lives." Tom nodded. "I understand. There's one more thing we need to address. Mike has been trying to contact people in your social circle, attempting to turn them against you. It's important that you stay ahead of this and maintain your support network." Sarah's face hardened with determination. "We'll talk to our friends and family, make sure they know the truth." In the following days, Jack and Sarah reached out to their closest friends and family members, explaining the situation and sharing their side of the story. The response was overwhelmingly supportive, and they felt a renewed sense of solidarity. Meanwhile, the court date for Mike's hearing was fast approaching. Jack and Sarah knew they needed to be present, to show their strength and resolve. On the day of the hearing, they arrived at the courthouse, hands tightly clasped. Inside, they found a seat in the gallery, their eyes fixed on the front of the courtroom. Mike was brought in, his demeanor defiant. He glanced around the room, his gaze briefly meeting Sarah's. She held her head high, refusing to be intimidated. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. Tom presented the evidence methodically, detailing Mike's violations and the impact on Jack and Sarah's lives. Witnesses testified, including the ship's captain and security officer, painting a clear picture of Mike's relentless harassment. Mike's lawyer tried to downplay the severity of his actions, arguing that his behavior stemmed from a place of love and desperation. But the judge was not swayed. After reviewing the evidence and hearing the testimonies, she made her decision. "Mr. Thompson, your actions have demonstrated a clear pattern of harassment and disregard for the law. You have violated a court order and caused significant distress to Mr. and Mrs. Miller. I hereby sentence you to 6 months in jail and a further 5 years of probation. Additionally, the restraining order will remain in effect indefinitely." Jack and Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over them as the judge's gavel came down. Mike was led away, his expression one of shock and disbelief. The nightmare that had plagued their lives was finally coming to an end. Outside the courthouse, Jack and Sarah embraced, tears of relief streaming down their faces. "It's over, Jack. It is really over," Sarah whispered. Jack nodded, holding her close. "We can finally move on, Sarah, together." The weeks that followed were a time of healing and rebuilding. Jack and Sarah continued their therapy, strengthening their bond and learning new ways to communicate and support each other. They took up new hobbies, finding joy in shared activities and rediscovering the love that had brought them together in the first place. One sunny afternoon, they decided to visit the horse farm where Sarah had once volunteered. The familiar sights and sounds brought back fond memories, and they spent the day riding and reconnecting with the animals. As they sat on a bench overlooking the paddocks, Sarah turned to Jack, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Jack, I want to thank you for standing by me through everything. I know it wasn't easy, but I'm so grateful for your love and support." Jack smiled, taking her hand in his. "We've been through a lot, Sarah, but we are stronger because of it. I love you, and I am committed to building a future together." Their days were filled with laughter and new experiences. They traveled to places they had always wanted to visit, created new traditions, and cherished the simple moments of everyday life. Their love had been tested, but it had emerged stronger and more resilient. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Jack turned to Sarah with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking, Sarah. We've come a long way and I want to celebrate that. How about we renew our vows? A fresh start surrounded by the people we love." Sarah's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Jack, that sounds wonderful. I love that." They began planning the ceremony, deciding to hold it at the beach where their journey of healing had begun. The day arrived, and they stood before their friends and family, reaffirming their commitment to each other with heartfelt vows. "I promise to love you, support you, and stand by you no matter what challenges we face. You are my partner, my love, and my best friend," Jack vowed, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "And I promise to cherish you, honor you, and always be honest and faithful. Together we can overcome anything," Sarah replied, her voice trembling with emotion. As they exchanged rings and sealed their vows with a kiss, their guests erupted in applause. The love and support of their community filled the air, and Jack and Sarah knew they had truly come full circle. The reception was a joyous celebration, filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt toasts. As the night drew to a close, Jack and Sarah stood together, watching their friends and family enjoy the festivities. "We did it, Sarah. We've built a new life together," Jack said, his voice filled with pride. Sarah smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Yes, we did, and I couldn't have done it without you, Jack. Here's to our future, filled with love and happiness." Their journey had been difficult, filled with heartache and challenges, but they had emerged stronger and more united. As they looked out at the horizon, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, with love and resilience. Thank you for listening to this story. Subscribe to my channel, put a like under the video, and write a comment about how you like this story and what stories you want to hear.